All right, well, let's get ADB going. Um, and in here, you have to install platform tools. So you go into the SDK manager in Android Studio and make sure that these tools are installed. Let me take a look at that. Here's my Android Studio, and I go Tools, SDK Manager, and here's the SDK tools. So in here, you make sure that you've got the command line tools and the platform tools installed. And when they install them, they'll go into a directory, and it shows you that directory up here, which is different on Windows and Mac. On Mac, it's Library Android SDK from the home directory. So once you got those things installed, you can then run this tool called ADB, which is Android Debug Bridge, which is very important. So let me go to my home directory, see if I can get this thing to work. Okay, so I go into Library, Android, SDK, and then Platform Tools. And now in here is this tool I need, ADB. And you can add it to your path and your logon script, so it'll always be there. But for what we're doing here, it's enough to go to that directory and then do /ADB. That's /ADB, Android Debug Bridge, and I get a help message that shows me that I do have it loaded correctly. So I'm already running an Android emulator here, and so I can do ADB devices list. I think just devices. There. And so you see I have a couple of devices running. This is the one I want, emulator 5554. Now for a later project, I started a Genymotion device, and I'm just going to stop it for now to simplify my life. If I can figure out how to make it appear so I can shut it down. There it is. So I shut it down here. There we go. And now if I do ADB devices, that one's offline, and it should vanish before long. All right. So let me just check my projects. You get platform tools, you launch an emulator, you launch ADB, and now you should be able to get a shell on it with ADB shell. Um, right. All right, actually, since I have more than one, let me try killing the rest of Genymotion and see if I can get it to stop recognizing it. There is a way to tell it which device to connect to, but I'd rather not bother. All right, if I got you, I can do ADB connect. I think I can do it by this name, emulator 5554. I might need to use an IP address or something. Yeah. Um, it's determined to think this one offline is still there and annoying me. All right, one way to do it is to get the IP address of this device and connect that way. Let me try that. Wi-Fi, Android. Okay, the IP address is 10.02.16. Let's see if that works. Nope. All right. When I've got two different kinds of emulators running on the same system, I don't remember how to do this. Uh, Now it's finally forgotten about the other one. This is the easy way to do it, is to just have only one device. Then you should be able to just do ADB shell. All right, and I have. All right, so notice something here. I'm on the emulator. I'm not on my Mac anymore. So if I do CD/ to get to the root and then ls, I see a normal Linux file system here. So you see a data directory, and let me do ls-l to show us some more details here. And you can see a few useful things to know about Android. Okay, you've got bin for system bin. You've got a data directory. This is where all the apps live and where all the apps data lives, which is normally what you want when you're doing things like a forensic investigation. You want to see emails and SMS messages and so on there. Um, Here's the running processes. Here's a sys directory and so on. So a standard Linux environment is what you have. And notice I am not root on this phone. I have a $sign. If I do who am I am shell, which is not the administrator. Another thing to notice, if we take a look at the data directory and then do ls minus l here, I don't have permission to go in there because I'm not the administrator. All right. Anyway, we'll look at that later when we look at a rooted phone, but you'll be able to see that every app installs with a different user account. And that's an unusual thing about Android compared to general purpose Linux distributions. Each app has its own user account. That's how they're separated from one another. So this is ADB that gives you command line control of your Linux environment, which is going to be very useful later. We're going to use that to pull down apps off the phone and investigate them. And now let's take a look at this ES Explorer vulnerability. This is an amazing vulnerability. Um, you may remember years ago there was a thing called the fappening where they got naked photographs of a bunch of celebrities and leaked them, and nobody knew how they got them. And I think the running theory was that they phished them and got into their iCloud. But another possibility is it was Android through this app. This app was extremely popular several years ago, and it helps show the fundamental problem with Android security, which is that ridiculous flaws sit around and nobody does anything about it. So this app is ES Explorer, and here it is. I can drag and drop it on my device, and that will install it. And then you have to run it once to get it going. The point is, Android does not give you access to the file system easily, so you can save files and find them. And so you often add a third-party app to do it, and that's what we have here. So once you've run it, but what's amazing about this app is people used it for years, and in all that time, nobody noticed this. If you look at your shell and do a netstat minus an pipe more, you'll find uh, I probably have to, yeah, let me just get the listening ports. Pipe grep listen. There, this process, listening on port 59777, is ES File Explorer. And what it's doing is serving as an FTP server and just sharing up all your files with no protection at all to anybody that can connect to your local network, which is quite amazing. And this was this way for years before anybody noticed, which is the fundamental problem with uh, devices, mobile devices. People don't see the problem with them. So I want to go here. I want to exit from the shell and then forward that port to my local system. So I exit from the Android shell. And on my local system, I run ADB forward. And I have to use a /. All right. Okay, now it's listening on port 59777 on my Macintosh host system and forwarding that to 59777 on the Android device. So now I can send commands to it. And here's a curl command that will give me a list of the photographs on the device. All right. And there you go. It gives me some information about the device. And you can actually, if you can connect to a real camera from your device, which would only, I think, work if you're using Genymotion, you can actually take a photograph and then steal that photograph off your device with this. So it is pretty amazing. And years ago, when I showed this to my class, my students said, would any security products stop it? And none of them will. None of the security products will stop it. I think they've updated that app, but it is amazing. You can have an app with a vulnerability like that, and nobody notices for years. All right. So that's what I wanted to show you with this demo. I'm going to make a separate video of the next one.